Good morning, Daily Dose of Danny followers. I know I didn't vlog yesterday. It was one of those days. What's going on here? Is this lotion all over my outfit? I know it's not deodorant. It's lotion probably because this is a jumper thing that you pull all the way on. So this had to go over my legs and my body, which is covered in lotion because moisturize is key. Moisturizing is key. Okay, so here's what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to talk about my health because it's a shit show. My health is a shit show. I don't want to talk about it anymore. So fuck that. Let's see some things in the news. So I watched Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which I love that show, and he was talking about Corona evictions. I don't know if everyone watches this, you're going to be like, fuck you, bitch. I don't need to watch your vlog because I've seen all that. But let me just talk a little bit about one aspect of it that I found to be super interesting. So obviously there's tons of renters in the nation, tons of renters that are living in places where there's high incidence of COVID and they're not able to go to work. So tons of renters that are living in places in the country where there's high incidence of COVID, they're not able to go to work, so how are they going to pay their rent? So there are some landlords and property owners who are understanding of that, and they're like, okay, just, once you go back to work, you pay your rent, and, maybe we'll just waive it. Because what else would you do? Add it on? Give me an extra $100 a week? $100 a month, I mean? They're just back to work. Do you know what I mean? So you either have a property owner that is understanding of the fact and just says, fuck it, when you can pay me, when you're back to work, pay me. And you have property owners who are like, fuck you, this is a business, and I'm sorry you don't have a job, but rent is key. If you can't pay your rent, we're going to start the eviction process. Well, in California, there was a moratorium on evictions. But I don't know how long that lasted. I don't know if people can be evicted right now. Now, if you get evicted, all right, so let's talk about a family, because I think it's important to do this. Let's talk about a husband, a wife, the 2 kids, the dog, the cat, the fish. Living in an apartment or a small house or a regular house, paying rent every month. Corona hits. They're sheltering in place, neither parent's working, but dad gets to telecommute, so he's still getting paid. But it's a family that needs both salaries in order to pay their bills. So I think their car payment, they're allowing them to skip those payments because you can just add that onto the life of the loan. Same with credit cards. They're letting you skip months. You can just add that on to, your debt, keep accruing interest or whatever they did. But rent is key. Rent is an issue. I mean, even some utilities are letting you just say, fuck it, I'll pay you when I can pay you. But rent was key. So they're living in this property, and the person that owns the property counts on the rents to pay their mortgage. So they're chasing that money. They need that money every month. Without that money, they can't pay their mortgage. Now, just as a property owner, allow me to say, you should have some reserves so that you can cover your mortgage if, God forbid, something happened, or your tenants moved out and you had to go a few months with no tenants. You should still be able to pay your mortgage. But apparently, a lot of people don't have that. So they file eviction paperwork and people are getting evicted. So you're going to get evicted from your property. It's a husband, wife, 2 kids, dog, cat, fish. Now, guess what they are? They're homeless. Now, counter that story with the homeless people we see on the streets right now, living in tents, the trash all around them, walking through the streets with their grocery cart full of belongings. The homeless that people scoff at and scorn and think are disgusting, dirty pigs. And why are they fucking on the streets? Why are they fucking up all the streets? Why are they shitting on the streets? Why are they trying to touch my nice stuff with their dirty stuff? Why are they ruining the underpasses and living by the freeway and clogging up places that used to be nice neighborhoods and now are shitholes because they're filled with fucking homeless people that everyone thinks is junk? Guess what? Those homeless people potentially used to be this family. Do you know what I mean? These evictions could cause an increase in homelessness that'll bring a whole new population of people to the streets. There's no place to live. You can't live for free anywhere. Tanstoffel. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So dad's telecommuting, so he might be able to pay like a little, maybe a motel room for his family, husband, wife, 2 kids, dog, cat, fish. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is going to be a huge issue, especially if these evictions go through and they allow these people to be evicted. So I have a few things to say about that. First of all, to the property owners, I say, fuck you. You're kind of an asshole. Like, I have people that owe me rent, and if they can't work, I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I'm not going to flip my wig over that. And not because I'm independently wealthy, because I understand. And I'll just, get through it until they can get through it. Because I have a heart. I'm a compassionate person. And I'm not even talking to them. They know that when they go back to work, they'll pay me. I know that, and they know that. That's our agreement. That's how we feel about each other. That there's trust there. So I also understand that there's property owners that have 800 apartments, and maybe they don't know all the people that live in their homes and their housing, and maybe they don't trust them, maybe they don't care about them, and they've got themselves in a, precarious financial situation. But what's your job as a property owner? Is your job just being a property owner? You just collect rent and that's how you live? So when you stop collecting rent, then you can't live? Where's your empathy? You're just thinking about yourself, like you're not thinking globally. I don't know what the solution is, but I can say right now that evicting people during this pandemic when they clearly cannot work and clearly cannot pay their rent is just, it's horrible. And I think that there was some federal subsistence or some sort of federal help for this kind of thing. And I don't know if property owners could apply for it. I wouldn't even look into that. That's just not me. That's not who I am. But it's upsetting. And John Oliver did a whole thing on this. And I was just like, wow. Because there is so much apathy and anger towards the homeless community. But we're potentially increasing the homeless community. And there's so many different reasons that people are homeless. It's not just because they're poor or they couldn't pay their rent to afford a place. It's not just because they're out of work, although those two things will definitely cause you to be homeless. Some homeless people are drug addicted. Some homeless people are mentally ill. Some homeless people are drug addicted and mentally ill. And some homeless people are just homeless. But here's my thing, and I'm not trying to be Pollyanna, but these people are somebody's person. They're somebody's daughter, somebody's son, somebody's brother, somebody's sister, somebody's parent. Somebody loved these people at one point, and maybe still do love them. And in a perfect world, the moms and the dads or the brothers and the sisters would go to the street and get their person and say, I'm going to take you to drug rehab. I'm going to take you to a homeless shelter. I'm going to take you to this motel where they're giving rooms to homeless people. I'm going to do everything I can to keep you safe. And that probably does happen in some places. But the number of homeless people and the way that they're living, which is subhuman conditions, there's a reason they're still out there. And it's somebody's job, it's our job, it's everyone's job to figure out why they're still out there and what we can do to help them. And I know that everyone says a lot of these people don't want help. They don't want to get off the streets. This is where they want to be. They don't want to follow rules. They don't want to live someplace where they're accountable to someone. That sounds mentally ill to me. That doesn't sound normal. Like, why would you choose to live in a dirty tent with no running water and no clean belongings and handle your potty business on the street? Why would that be a choice that you make? That's not a choice that someone makes who's in charge of all their faculties. So I have so much compassion and empathy. I have a heart for this homeless situation. And if we start evicting people, then we're going to have a shelterless population that's going to join the homeless population, and it's going to grow exponentially. So there has to be a solution. And as always, the solution needs to come from the people who have the power or the money or both. So just something to think about if you watch my vlog and you're a property owner and you're motherfucking your tenants because they're not paying their rent. Try to humanize them. Try to think about their situation. I don't think, and this is just, I mean, maybe this sounds naive, I don't think that there are people who were out of work because of coronavirus and couldn't pay their rent, and now they're back to work and they're like skating, like, oh, I'll just get a few more extra months for free. I just don't think that that's really who people are. This pandemic has made people question everything about themselves as far as, you know, what they consider to be important, how much they value the jobs they had, the feeling of accomplishment that they had when they went to work every day, all of these things. And I just feel like if everyone has a heart for what everyone else is going through, instead of just thinking about yourself, that we could be in a much better place with a lot less evictions. I'm stressed about the evictions. Okay, so a little bit more about white supremacy, which is, as we know, everywhere. And I was watching Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel last night, which I love that show. It's always been one of my favorite shows. But he was talking to Steve Kerr and who's that other guy? Mark Cuban. Excuse me. And some, you know, prominent players in sports and getting their opinion of all of this. And one of the things that I heard, which I thought was really good, it's something that I've been saying to my people when I talk to them about, you know, white privilege and the racial divide. And what I say to them is, you can't deny the history. You can't just pretend like the history didn't happen. As Mark Cuban said, this is real history. It happened to black people 400 years ago, and they're still paying the price of something that white people did to them 400 years ago because it got woven into our system. So when I hear people say, well, whatever, get over it, move on, what the fuck, get a job, stop carrying that around as a burden, I say, but you can't discount the history. The history is there. So then I hear things like, well, who's telling them about the history? Like, why are they so involved in the history instead of what's in front of them right now? Well, like everyone else, where you came from helps you get where you're going. You have to acknowledge where you came from. Like, for example, I grew up in a family. We lived in a small town in Ohio. There's 4 children, all girls. My mom got pregnant before she was married. She was pregnant on her wedding. She got married in February, and my sister was born in September. She married a man that she didn't really know because she was pregnant with his baby. I mean, they didn't know each other that well. They like met in a bar. I mean, it was a classic tale of, you know, pick up a chick in a bar, have sex with her, whoops, she's pregnant. So, you know, it's not like they knew each other very well, but they ended up getting married. They stayed married for 12 years. In those 12 years, with the 4 kids, all girls, my mother worked all the time. She was not a stay-at-home mom. My father worked, and my mother never drank. She did not consume alcohol. I guess the drunk pregnancy was enough for her. She was not a drinker. But she was not a happy person. She had a lot of anger. She also probably had some mental problems. Definitely, you know, some bipolar issues, manic depressive, something along those lines. I mean, her behavior was not good. There was a lot of torture in my family growing up, a lot of verbal as well as some physical torture. Things that I would never do to my children, you know, like ritualistic spankings and weird punishments. Like one thing my dad used to do when we were talking at night, if it was past our bedtime, we had really early bedtimes. I'm talking like 7:30. It's still fucking light outside in the summer. We had to be in bed at 7:30. So, you know, my sisters and I would be up there chatting and laughing and talking. And they would call up and say, be quiet. And, you know, we would try, but we're kids, so we're still talking. We would have to come downstairs and he would pull the kitchen chairs out. We'd have to stand on kitchen chairs in the middle of the kitchen as a punishment. Sometimes for hours. That was a punishment. That was really hard to do. Another punishment is we'd have to sit on the steps down to the basement. The basement was super scary. It was like not a cool place to go. Very scary place. In the dark on the steps. Scared the fuck out of us. And then spankings, if somebody was getting a spanking, like let's say somebody did something, 9 times out of 10 it was me, but sometimes did something. He had a footstool. We had to stretch out over the footstool and he would spank us. And he would make the other sisters watch. It used to just rip my heart apart when any other sister was getting a spanking. Like I would literally just wail, cry. I never cried when I got a spanking though, because you're not fucking hurting me. Okay, so this is some fucked up shit. Then my parents got divorced because my mom was having an affair with a drunk. And she then started drinking. Then they were drunk all the time. She and her stupid fucking second husband, who was also a pedophile. So now we go from their alcohol abuse, the verbal abuse in that house would fucking curl your hair. Then it turned into sexual abuse and physical abuse. So there's a bunch of bullshit going on. That's how I grew up. That's some fucked up shit. Everybody comes from something. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know where I came from, so I know where I'm going. Where I'm going is I would never do that to my children. I don't do that to my children. I'm hyper vigilant when they would spend the night somewhere. If there's a potential older brother or some fucked up family situation, and then that's not happening. That child's welcome to stay at my house. My house is a safe place, but they're not staying over there. And I was strong about this. And then, I give my kids tools, like what to look for, what kind of things are inappropriate, and on and on. So Black people typically, though, they don't have this. This is their perspective. Their worldview's much smaller. It was a mother or a father or grandparent that said to them, white people used to own us. White people think we're less than them. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of their history is negative. There's no pause. And so sometimes when you're living in a household where there's that burden of always thinking one thing about an entire race of people, you carry that with you. That's your burden now. And then systemic racism where, Black people couldn't be landowners, so it's hard to own a home. And, you can't, get a loan, and you are living in neighborhoods where it's predominantly Black people and white people don't want to live there. So these are redlined areas, and then your schools don't have any money. And it's